Let's talk about Thousand Islands by Zedeck Siew and Munkao from Centaur Games, or 1000islands.com I think is the main website. This is a series of system neutral settings, places, based on Southeast Asian legends and stories and environments, and there are 8. It's a zine format, of which there are 8 main issues. That's issue 8. There's issue 1, which are settings, and then there are 3 ancillary products, which I'm not going to be talking about today. 2 sets of drawings by Munkao, which are great and inspirational, but there's no writing in them. And then Hand 2, which is by Zedeck, which is partly discussion of legends about the undead and ghosts and things in Southeast Asia, and also sometimes commentary on the way that this stuff gets translated in game, which is interesting. There are 8 issues. They have been published. This, by the way, is the setting. There is you can still pre-order via Kickstarter a full adventure called Reach of the Roach God coming out from, but these came first and were published, I think, something like 2018 to 2020, off the top of my head. And yes, there are 8 issues. 2 of them I don't have PDFs of. I ordered them at a point where I don't think I had PDFs of them. So they are Munkao, the Death Rolled Kingdom, and Kra Ching, which is a kind of cat village. What I'm going to do is what I've done before with zines and serial entries, like I did this for Slumbering Ursine Dunes. Basically, I will try to give a bit of an overview of big headline comments on these as products, and then we'll look at the PDFs a bit just to try to give you a sense of what's going on in them, and to give micro reviews of them. I actually reviewed the first 4 on my blog ages ago, and I kind of did that too. I gave an overview, and then I gave a paragraph long summary of each in terms of what I thought was going on. Basically, I think the big strengths here, one, Zedeck does the writing, Munkao does the art, and they are both very gifted at what they do. What I think I'd give us some of the headline positive comments is that they're incredibly evocative and beautiful. That's obviously a very beautiful moth there on the front of Heleng. I'll just go down and we'll get some sample, just a quick sample up. They all start like this: 5 days through foggy uplands, the river forks, the sun is out, men nap on the bank or dice in shabby cabanas. A young girl waves. Guide, she calls. Need a guide? Wingseed, junior guide. A loop of vine on her arm. When she whistles, it goes where she wants. She just learnt this trick, so shows it off every chance she gets. Wingseed is in the time of the tree shrew, all talk, no filter. If you do something cool, she tries to copy you, regardless of danger. So, this is the kind of format that you have a place in the world of the Thousand Islands, which is, I guess you're talking about from Thailand and Malaysia, like the peninsula, down into the long island chains heading across to Guinea. But yes, you go to the setting, and you often start with either character descriptions or a place, and you get kind of this type of style with Munkao's art, very beautiful line art, black and white, and then Zedeck's writing, which is usually a couple of very white-spaced paragraphs. There's not lots of writing. The impact is meant to be the evocation of the words, not the amount of it. There are also tables, random tables of different things of all kinds of whatever. Again, I'll try to get an example up in this issue. Let's just give myself access to that. Here we go. This is about the leech, and you can see here is a d20 of things that the leeches who serve the leech god steal from you. It could be your life, or a cherished memory, or your ability to feel pain, or your big toes, or a meter of your height. And there's lots of tables like that. Usually each issue has a few of those. Several of these also have pullouts, which I won't go over in detail necessarily, but say for Upper Heleng, you have, it's, yeah, a little booklet like that. And then you have people and their names and generation systems for people. And then Lay of the Forest, which is a bit of a dice drop system for travelling around the forest. This, by the way, is one of the best bits of all 8 I would like the Lay of the Forest pull out. But that's the format. It is system neutral. There are no stats. There is no implied rule system. In terms of many of the things that are being discussed, you can see it's D&D adjacent. And I believe Reach the Roach God will be fully statted. But these are meant to be resources for evocation, which you then work up. And I think they are incredibly successful at that level. I'll just find another example or two of this great writing. There's often local trade goods, which is in itself a kind of really nice thing in terms of not trade goods. Some of it might be like, oh, they're selfish here, but usually there are odd things and interesting things which those of us who I guess have run games a bit you can begin to pick up why these might be interesting as things you put around in a game. You send people to get you create business opportunities with weird stuff that players are like, okay, I'll sell that. So Sunfruit, there is a temple complex where it is always day even at night, haunted by bright wisps. Looking at them is to look at miniature suns. Trees here bear yellow fruit with spicy flesh. Eating these makes your skin hot as glowing iron. This does not hurt you. Or again, let's Grurumdur, business owner. A glutton, so obese her claws can barely scratch the ground. Servants have to carry her about on a litter. Owns fish farms, forage operations, snakestone quarries. Many people work for her. Many more owe her money. And that is a crocodilian. It's a sentient crocodile person, but not humanoid. Kind of reminiscent perhaps of the Rastapedes and the Zixchill in Spelljammer, where you can have a non-humanoid player ancestry, or relevant sentient ancestry anyway. And yes, so yeah, just this very evocative and fun and immediately setting up possibilities kind of text, really nice art. And the fact that it's sparse, the fact that you're reading this book and you're like, oh, that was 6 very short sentences and 2 very short paragraphs, really, almost 2 sentences. Partly there's a terse writing style which does condense it and makes it good bang for buck. But in general, I think, yes, it's fair to say this is it's about the effect it has on you. And I think the point is the effect it has on you is great. The writing is great, and the kind of information thrown in is great. The personalities, the tensions, the possibilities, the items. I think secondarily, it's worth saying, I've mentioned the tables, and they are generally good. The characters generally good. But I'll say that I'll particularly talk about the pullouts, which I won't do on screen. I think I do have PDFs for all of them, but probably just easier for now to very quickly look at this. So, for instance, Upper Helleng has a dice drop table for almost a flux space style rolling around, going around through the forest in this slightly mystical forest. And again, that's the evocative text. There is one procedure, 2 procedures. You drop, and multiples of 3 are camps. So die results, evens are connected by rivers to each other. Multiples of 3 are camps. So there is a kind of a Gygaxian doubling using the mechanic to give you two types of information with one result. So it could be that you've got anti-fireflies flit about, motes of unlight, the larvae of pool spirits is linked via evens to a chasm full of vile pandanus. Tricky footing, easy to fall in. Meanwhile, there's a camp under some durian trees, ripening, falling fruit seeks out your head. And your character's going to be moving around the jungle like that for that day. Anjang it is mostly Anjang in general has a pseudo dungeon involved, which is the palace, and here you have like a player facing picture, and then you have a key. That's a useful resource. I'll talk about that slightly more when we talk about Anjang in a minute, but for now, that's the takeaway. It's nice to have a map of an environment you might want to adventure in. Stray Virasa has Memories of Mu, which is the old empire from which ghosts come. You've got the ghosts are from these particular places, and they remember particular things, or they're from particular times and remember particular things. And drop 5 dice. This period was a time and place mostly known for. So you're talking to a character from the 17th dynasty, and they remember Zia Marsh, a patchwork of rebel princedoms never quelled, and then you roll 5 dice to find out what that was known for. You drop 5 dice, sorry, to find out what that was known for. Again, that's really creative. That one is perhaps slightly more limited, but you can see again the desire to, in that case, using random tables and a dice drop to create really memorable NPCs from these kind of mock Chinese ghosts, I guess. Corvu doesn't have one, I don't think. Yeah, no, it doesn't. And Ungalanka, Ungalalanka has, again, it's maps. There's a map of the town and the regional market, and there is the key. So that is large format comparatively, access for DMs and for players to maps of the places. So the foldouts are nice too, and again, they're all in Munkao's art. They all are very clear. Generally speaking, I'd say things like layout and clarity in general, kind of justification, white space, etc., all work really well so far as it goes. You know, one trick is if you're very terse and you lay out fairly generously per page, you can give it a lot of white space. But yes, you get the idea. Here are some examples of leech spawn. One may have the legs of deer, an old man's voice, Mrs. a peer harlot in some distant city is pregnant with a panther. Slay a leech spawn and all its parts return to their origins. So yes, the weakness, the systemic weakness, is not that it is statless. It is statless, but it's not that it's statless. That's actually generally speaking, you can equate an equivalent. You know, you can say it's going to be like this. Also, if you're wanting to do a bit of prep, and you know these are going to be, you're going to need to do a bit of prep, but you do have to when you pick up the old Wormskin zines about to go out of print, replaced by Donwood books themselves. If you get rid of the Wormskin, you know, if you look at the Wormskin zines, if you look at Echoes from Foam or Hort, if you're trying to run a campaign with those rather than just whatever exact material is in the book, you've got to do prep. So I don't mind the idea you've got to do prep with zines, and the fact they're statless. Well, you can make equivalents for most of it. It will suit those kind of very mechanics loose tables even better, because in the end the DM won't have to do the work, the same kind of work, to integrate them. But yes, I don't mind the statlessness personally, at least not as much as I think it is an issue that these are obviously meant. David McGrogan has talked about it recently about how it's okay to have almost, well, it's inspiration material, but this is inspiration material, and the layout tells you that, as we've seen with this one up at Heleng. Oh, what a lovely picture of where we're going. Okay, good, that is that direction. Oh, we've met someone. Ah, there's a dog with her. Ah, we're going into the forest. This is meant to be read. And what that means is that it is much less immediately gameable than other things in the same field. I'm thinking about including zines, Planar Compass, or Wormskin, or Echoes from Foam or Hort being the obvious ones for me in my collection. You have to do a lot more work. It's very evocative, so as a DM you're really soaking this in, or as whoever's reading it, you're really soaking it in. You can imagine there being a standalone enjoyment of people who have no desire to play D&D reading these, I think. It's incredibly evocative, but it is something where you have to piece it together. Occasionally there are things where you could, a mystery, and by that I mean there is something mentioned several times in a zine, and the referent for that only appears later. In 100 Red Scales, for instance, there is it is particularly that what's his name, Narawatu, defeated king. He pops up right at the back. He is mentioned several times beforehand. You are wondering who he is. This is using some of the techniques of fiction, of course, and of anticipation for you, the reader, to find out what's happening, and for you, the reader, to piece together the mysteries. And that means it's not a technical document. And basically, Dungeons and Dragons resources are technical documents, whether we like it or not. And so, as a warning, there is a far bigger gap between reading these and putting them into play, because you're going to have to piece together the puzzle yourself rather than have it pieced together for you by the writers. And I think that kind of connects to some degree with, here's a legend, to some degree this does connect to an issue of gameability of particular entries. The fact that this is often indirect and evocative prose means that you sometimes, even on a really good entry, you'll be like, how do I make this become something? And it's going to take that extra prep. This doesn't look like a bad example. Sadashan Sandi, questing Princess Kaidoon, once fought the leech god of Upper Heleng. Leeches took her face. Now nobody knows what Queen Kaidoon looks like. Sadashan believes he'll be rewarded handsomely for returning his liege lady's likeness. But the leeches have taken many faces. How will he recognise hers? Now, very nice picture, very evocative, very good story. You can see how that is an adventure hook, and that is a really strong adventure hook, to be clear. But, well, how will he recognise hers? Where's he going to go? You realise here that this is functionally, if you want to think of it as a game resource, these characters, these NPCs and locations and goods are functionally in themselves vast random tables of 1 or 2 line descriptions and ideas. It's as if you'd bought a book of 2 line NPC descriptions, or 4 line NPC descriptions, and you roll. This is the NPC you meet. That's a great idea, obviously, but that's it. Saying something like Castle's Interland, you think about how you the possibility of randomly encountering family members in Castle's Interland. You flick to the back. You roll your D100, you flick to the back, and you look up their paragraph-long entry of personality and then their stats. And here is the same. It's a rich plot hook, if you want to put it that way, but all the work is on your side for that. It is just an ideas machine. And in that sense, the fact that you're laid out over a 30-something page zine is misleading. I don't mean it's intentionally misleading. What I mean is you may mislead yourself and think, so I'm getting something where there's going to be all these characters and plot hooks. I'm just going to be able to be like, okay, I need these stats, and I put together the map, that's fine. And then actually, no, it's a lot more than that. It is as if you're buying a really well laid out and really evocative version of a set of good tables, basically. That is the other criticism, and it's not an insignificant one. With that said, I really like Thousand Islands. I think it is really inspirational. It has a place in my game, in my world. And I'm willing to put some effort into turning this into reality. I wonder what Reach of the Roach God will be like on that basis, actually. Like how far that will bridge the gap between inspirational, terse experience for you as the reader, which turns into game material, versus actual game material. I wonder how far it will bridge that gap. But yes, let's talk about for the back half of this review, let's just talk about the individual issues a little bit, and I'll try not to overstay my welcome on them. I do, because I basically would say, based on what I've said, if you think you can put the work in and want to put the work in, I'd go and get them, as long as you can get them at a price that's okay for you. But if you're wondering about particular issues, we'll talk about that. So the first I'm just going to have to do like this: Merkiger and Kraching. So Merkiger, I think it's more or less that they were released 1 and 2, pause 3 and 4, 5 to 8. I think. I've got them in batches over time based on that. So Merkiger, 5 days by boat upriver, you come to a wide lake watched by limestone cliffs, shape lurk in the water, shapes wait up ahead. And big gates like the Argonath in Lord of the Rings, but crocodile heads. Merkur Singer, which is a port. Traders Island, then the human merchant lord, forest goods, customs. There is actually straight away a mention of adventure. This is one thing that, though so far you're getting a kind of very indirect and evocative presentation of a place, of the city, and of the things you can get there, and of the you then, under adventure, you're basically told what you can do. The overgrown ruins of Munkao are taboo. All priests and most crocodiles agree the secrets they hold should stay hidden. The possibility of treasure is a great lure, so tomb raids still happen. Technically, there is no law against this. You just have to survive the ghosts, demon idols, traps, curses. There is custom. It is customary for robbers of Munkau's ruins to be dismembered. There is then a demon idols table, which could definitely function as part of a random encounter table, which is the demon idols are prisons for the gods. The old world, made by the people of the old world. The old world was drowned by the river, but its slaves could not be set free. So these were potentially perfectly good gods. There's a god of health, a god of illumination, a god of music and arts, but they now have a dark impact instead. Yeah, we have a crocodilian, a three-limbed adventurer archaeologist who will tell you about a red fort 6 days east following the Goldfish Canal, which, he'll send you on missions. He wants you to go there, and he'll give you equipment to get into this gateless red fort. You've got 3 tables which allow you to create people of the Death Roll Kingdom, both humans and crocodilians. You've got one regular thing is not just, oh man, crocodilians are fun, but also you have like a half sword person who's half living weapon, half human. Crocodiles of the Death Roll Kingdom, some stuff about the palace and the royal family, and then some ambassadors from the uplands, including a bear dude. I don't know what kind of bear he is actually. Barry Bran, Baron of Candice. But yeah, so I liked Munkao a lot. That's one of my preferred ones, I think. Kraching is about the god Or. The god Or is, there's this statue. So human, Or is a woodcutter who saves the valley, and then is a friend of the cats. And there's cats who live here amongst humans. That's a yak, kind of is he yak or a buffalo folk trader? Lots of humanoids in here, which are not our typical humanoids. And I think, again, in terms of creating a rich, coherent setting, that's good. That's a classically OSR attitude, isn't it? The idea of actual reinculturation of the setting. In this case, it's actually very specifically to Southeast Asians, talking about Southeast Asian culture and offering a look from their different perspective that isn't Occidental. But in general, it's a kind of OSR value, isn't it? The idea that you reskin and move away from that which your players assume and are familiar with. Jyoti and Joven, darlings. Pale ginger tabbies. Everybody who sees them stops and fawns. Oh, Jyoti, Joven, where have you two been? The pair went missing for a month. Agents of the retractable claw, back from murdering a Bambung prince. Those are some personalities you could meet. Got stuff about the court. Again, that's actually very similar to Kraching. Random tables for cats of Kraching. Random encounters in Kraching Forest. A common thing is actually to have a rule about doubles. If you roll doubles, a team of woodcutters from Kraching are also present, competent with feline guide companions. They can take you back to town. And some of these encounters are going to be fine. They're just someone you could talk to, but then say there's a tortoiseshell cat with a talking bird in its mouth. Do you help the cat who's local, or do you help the bird? A woodcutter slumped against a root, symptoms of heat exhaustion and dehydration, somehow dying from thirst. What's going on? A thin stream tumbling over rocks, tumbling uphill. A serpentine water spirit constricts and drowns prey. That's a great image in itself. Yes, the retractable claw of cats on missions, who are obviously part of, therefore the cats, not cat people, but cats are part of the hierarchy, part of the population. So yeah, Kraching's nice. Upper Heleng, great pull out. Upper Heleng, the forest beloved by time, is a sort of philosophy as reality place. It is time in the forest. Aged D12 years every night in the forest. Clothes rust, swords rust. Clothes rot, swords rust, teeth fall out. But you need to eat forest food that will localize you. There's an encounters in the forest table. There's the Questing Prince. There's also an itinerant swordfish being carried around by a dude. He's on a mission. People of the forest, people and place. There's a kind of there's a Mythico would feel in some ways to the this idea that you have a merger of a mythloric thing, the time of the shrew for our the young guides, the time of the macaque for the chief. The time of the macaque is a time of wisdom. It belongs to the elderly. Her monkey knows useful spells. Move through earth, wood to gold, command animals. Eat a monkey's feces, you learn its spell. This is what it tells you, at least. A herb woman whose medicine is turning her into a bird. In fact, it might be, I think beetroot is an addictive drug. Blowpipe ace. Again, people and trade. The gods and time. The leech who goes around stealing stuff from its victims to turn into, turn into spawn. Mercury oozing from golden combs in the quick honey. A taste grants invulnerability and unerring action for a single day, and death immediately after. So yes, and there's lots of weird things, like a little Mothman thing who you can ask questions of, but it'll cost you. Yeah, so you can see, by the way, there's immediately different environments there. This is a kind of mainland or large island environment. But yeah, Mercagur is a trading kingdom with ruins and a strong nobility. Crouching is a more rural place, and Upper Heleng is really forest nomadic tribes or semi-nomadic tribes. Anjang, the Queen on Dog Mountain. I'll actually there we go. The Queen on Dog Mountain. 3 days up a switchbacking track. Rumours. There is a rumour table. Which is itself, I mean, that's interesting and promising, isn't it? Again, it's gameable. It gives you ideas. You have lots of different possibilities in here. Harihani, exiled heir, who's come here to get aid to take over Silanga again, and knows the Anjang royals could help her. Again, there's trade goods. There's 3 laws of Anjang, which protect is the magic that protects Anjang, amongst other things. There's lots of royalty. Born by their dozens, the royalty are dumped in the forest to die. Fair game for any predator. They learn to stick together. They learn to pack hunt wild pig and tiger. Eventually they hunt each other. They leave the forest scarred alone. In Kamardi, they take a name and their station as royalty. They never forget what the forest has taught them. Princesses have high hats. Princesses wear heavy turbans. And yeah, there's the palace town above the, I guess, everything else, with the a kind of multi-page detail of the rooms. The rooms are keyed, so as I say, there are possibilities there for exploration. There's palace atmosphere rules, or not rules, table. You come out a door in a different part of the complex, a one-time spatial distortion. A baby bites, scuttles, hisses like a cat cornered. Fetch the servants, they'll shoot out. Basically the royal family are monsters is the thing here. And yeah, as I say, the pull-out for that is a map. Upper Heleng, I liked for the possibilities around the palace exploration, but there's not as much else to it as there is elsewhere, I would say. Stray Verasa. Here we're onto an island, and Upper Anjang again, Anjang, sorry, is again large island or mainland. Stray Verasa is an island, small island relatively speaking, and it is the stray member at the foot or the stray part of the Verasan chain. Who goes there? People who might want to go and find souls, or go and aid someone, or basically go and find ghosts, or find medicine, because there's extra medicine in this ghost-ridden place. So these are people you might meet on the way. Again, you can see some of those are hooks. They are potential adventure possibilities. items. Yeah, I like this guy, Satchel the Lovelorn Knight, who I would immediately associate, perhaps wrongly, with Hanuman. But so you have, in the same way that Stray Verasa seems to draw in a version of pre-modern Imperial China with what Mu seems to be, and there may well be other inspirations, or I've just got that wrong. Satchel draws from the west. You have this kind of Southeast Asia between other places in Fantasy Asia. Yeah, Stray Verasa. What did I like about it? I thought this was quite a good one, with all the weird ghosts that you could meet. Lots of them are. I'll just show you there. You can see weird see-through ghost dude. Also served by also humans as well, but there are far more ghosts. There are ghost pirates who sink their ship so as to travel between waters. Special things you can buy, of course, as you'd expect. I think Stray Verasa is probably one of the more limited ones in terms of it's got lots of NPCs basically, and it's got lots of items. And the biggest thing in terms of hooks, there are a couple of character hooks where you're like, oh, this character might want this, and there's the kind of people who are travelling there too. And in that sense, it will be probably easiest to hook players via one of those visitors. In terms of how you get people to go around a map and value the whole world is, well, very often you give them someone who's like, I'm doing this, or I need help with this. Corvu, drowned half the year, above water half the year, has magical salt. Are they salt spirits who help with that? Has like the salt god, yeah. Has magical Cthulhuid salt gods, which go from tiny things like that into big monsters who suck out the salt for the coming rice season. This is fun, and I think I'd have to think about how to use it, but the way this works is that basically half the book, more or less, is dedicated, or just over half the book is dedicated to drowned Corvu, the other half to dry Corvu, when it is, and because here the founder of the kingdom had a bet with the sea over who could get the most bit of the moon, and via a classic folklorish twist, the moon wins and vassalizes Corvu and drowns it for half the year. But so yeah, for half the year they are raiders and fishermen. They use houseboats. The only thing above water the whole time is the royal palace. They have boats who have souls, feeling a little bit Robin Hood there. And they have knights, which may well be, of course, an indigenous legend as well. Knights are bonded to them, and they remove their heads. They practice ritual decapitation and have hardwood prows for heads. You can see a couple of them in the background there. I can probably get it up on this, actually, so I'm not very far from it. Yeah, war barges, designs for war barges, and there you can see there's the magic boat, and there are the knights, and I guess that would be the master there. And the boat is married to the master. Really evocative. There are some suitably weird undersea missionaries. Guess at the surface kingdoms send representatives during the dry season, pelagic peoples during the rainy season. So there's living coral who's been sent there, intelligent coral. The How, who are like jellyfish parasites, I guess. Let's see if I can hop my way over to them. Yeah, there's some living coral, there's some jellyfish parasites, and there is a ray folk who is puppeting the corpse of a drowned woman as he seeks allies in Corvu for his people. And then you have dry Corvu. The building of boats happens during this time. Dry Corvu, there's less going on immediately, but this is almost the perfect encapsulation of high inspiration, particularly with these weird ambassadors and the goods you could have and the weird things that could happen, but low on the immediately gameable side of things. This is one of those that will definitely require a bit more translation compared to Upper Heleng, where you actually have like more or less rules and procedure for travelling around the forest, the weird magic forest, full of leeches and other weird apparitions. Whereas this is more like, no, you're going to have to work out how you travel around the sea and how you hook all these NPCs in. One tip in general is probably where there is not a rumour table. One or two of these have rumour tables, but where there is not a rumour table, make one. Or add a bunch of these rumours onto your region rumour table. And that will draw people in much more effectively than you just kind of sticking stuff out there, you know. Ungalalanka, the Road of Hoofless Horses. This is basically this is a gimmick. Here, do you see he's riding a little puppet? That is a puppet of a cow, I think. These people make magical puppets, and you ride them. And nowadays, you're only allowed to make magical horses or cows because they're easy to make and control. But there are others, feral or wild, out in the forests. Yeah, there is a random encounter table in this one for occurrences on market day. There is the young Queen Embur, who is 14 with a 44-year-old's acumen and a 24-year-old's hunger. And yeah, she is a kind of cunning politician. There are all kinds of a monkey and a bear cat who are intelligence agents, who I think they're on behalf of the Monkey Empress, who's been kidnapped by the Dusty Duster slavers. Very gameable, very fun. Again, you're going to have to stick it in a rumour table or whatever else, but that's fine. This one, I think, it has a really easy hook. It doesn't have loads of procedures, comparatively, or like doable things, but it has the puppets. It has a couple of encounter tables, to be fair, but not lots of stuff in it. This is one thing that is more or less universal amongst these, is there are hinted environments you could go to. There is a thing that might be described on an encounter table that might be worth a whole session, but a lot of this is, there's a sense that the implied game, outside of places like Munkao, where you're told, well, you could just go to a ruin in the jungle. The implied game for lots of this is Rayatama-ish. You know, a lot of it is, here's a funny thing, what's going to happen? Oh, you meet these people. And I think I've run that kind of game, and that there are definitely sessions and adventures that are more like that, but it is a one edge of the D&D spectrum. I think it's you know, it's useful if you think about the three pillars of D&D. Well, if you're told the three pillars of D&D are wilderness exploration, combat, and social interaction. And you know, I quite like those as three pillars in some ways, but I also think thinking of it in terms of adventure type, because that forms so much of what else happens. Wilderness exploration, dungeon crawl, city adventure, which is also social adventures in general, really being the city adventure model. I think in that case, you see here that there is a heavy emphasis on wilderness exploration merging into social adventure, city adventure. Virtually no dungeon crawl, even implicitly. You can add that in fairly easily, but it's not naturally supported by the game, by the setting. So yeah, Ungalalanka, I think, without necessarily having as many locales, is very good at setting up possibilities. It has the encounter tables, and it has the sort of some of the natural interactions of NPCs. You can see how you'd put that together. Feral puppets, rat, many rats, a swarm of rats. Rhino, basically a bronze shield. And though the feral ones you're not really meant to be able to befriend, I think the idea, of course, you can see players being like, oh, maybe I could find a wild elephant puppet, which I could then gain the power of the elephant. Because when you ride the horse, you gain the strength of the horse or whatever. So you can carry people. What would happen if you had a rat puppet? And finally, 100 red scales, which is kind of gender discussion and problematization is common in these. This one definitely has some of the most, which, as I said, I won't go into as I'm kind of trying to pass over each very quickly. But if you're interested in that, this is probably the one for you. This is inhabited by monitor lizard people. These are really lovely art, obviously, there. 3 days east, island hopping eastward. Corvu, obviously, by the way, an island. Ungalalanka, again, large island or mainland. 100 red scales is an archipelago like Varasa is implicitly. And here, yeah, you've got encounters. These encounters are not necessarily as immediately runnable as some. I thought add a couple, Sri Duka and Sri Sukha are actually referencing things you have to read the whole book to get to. This is part of the here's a random table, but really it's part of a fictionalized presentation of D&D for you to enjoy as a book, which obviously some people hate. I don't, but bear that in mind. Yeah, lots of tables for naming people and things and islands, ways that stuff about humans and monitor folk. Again, nice inspiring art. Dance around a lightning fist. Then there is Little Red Scale is the island, which is well, they teach weaving and dyeing, because weaving and dyeing and textiles are the great product of the 100 Red Scales. But Little Red Scale is a kind of monastery island where people, young people or older people, desperately seek to be apprenticed and go away. There's a list of classes, classes you go to, which and a list of encounters actually as well. And then in the back half with the NPCs, there are lots of NPCs on Little Red Scale, including guests, and that's where a lot of the obvious adventure possibility comes. So maybe it's useful to think of 100 Red Scales as half about how to run the whole area in a very light manner, because remember, each of these pages is word count wise very low, and then the second half is a location guide to Little Red Scale. And yeah, giving you different NPC options, different possibilities for the social adventure, which is set up there. Again, this one, more than some, is therefore playing towards a social adventure with other things coming up. There are catacombs, to be fair, in Little Red Scale, which you could dungeonize. But yes, that is the individual issues. I think they are, all good. I enjoyed them all. I think some definitely have stuck with me over time, like Upper Heleng, Corvu and Ungalalanka, Merkagur. That's probably my top half. If you have then read or run these, I'd love to hear how that's gone in the comments. And I guess, what about other really distinctive, enculturated settings? Recommend some other things that in that particular sense are like this, and just in general discuss what you think about them. Till next time.